everyone. Welcome to our amazing episode today on the Bond Mom podcast. And we have Donna Bond with us. Donna, welcome to the show.
Hi, Melissa. So glad to be here.
Oh, I am just so excited for you to be on this amazing podcast and be on this journey with us because we were talking before the show started, you guys, and I was telling her how, everything that we do in the health and wellness world right now, what's thrown at us is work out, eat right. Oh, you're overweight. Well, then you just need to eat less. Oh, you don't like this? We'll just train harder. And that is so not true when it comes to living your best life ever. Is that not right, Donna?
No, yeah, I couldn't agree more. I have to tell you, honestly, when I went to your website and was learning about you and all that you do, I felt intimidated. I was like, oh my God, I hit middle age. I have this, tire around my waist. And it was a moment to judge myself. But I teach people about not doing that for themselves, right? So it was just a moment of giving myself some pause and tuning inside and reminding myself that I'm doing the best that I can.
Yeah. Well, I love that you're admitting that too, because it just makes you more real to all of us.
Right.
You up on this pedestal right now. So it makes you more real to us. But that's something that I deal with all the time, especially being in a gym, and I'll be like deadlifting, this much. And I look over and I'm like, oh my God, I thought I was doing so good. And then I compare myself to the person next to me. And we coach women to not do that.
I
I always
know.
say comparison's the root of all evil.
Without question. Without question. Yeah.
I
Yeah.
think I think the saying is jealousy is the root of all evil, but I'm like, same thing, right?
Yeah.
So you are a spiritual advisor, business and life coach, and author. Girl, what don't you do?
Mm. Well, it was quite a journey getting here. I was in the corporate world for 28 years. My father died when I was 22, and he was a workaholic. And I sort of put my head down and put my high heels on and started climbing that ladder and just kept going and going and going. And I got, to the top. And I looked around and I was like, gosh, all this is not all that. And it looked like on the surface, it looked like I had it all, but deep down inside, I was really empty and really unhappy. And on the advice of a psychic, I enrolled myself in a master's program in spiritual psychology with the University of Santa Monica. And that was a transformational journey that changed my entire life, all of it, from the inside out. And that is sort of how I got here. But yeah, I've done a lot. I've done a lot. I keep saying yes to taking the next step.
Oh, I love that because so many of us say, no, I'm okay. I'm happy and content where I'm at.
Yeah, I know. I know that well.
Yeah. Did you say you did this off of the advice of a psychic?
I did say that. Yes.
That is crazy. Okay, so were you regularly visiting a psychic? Were you just out and were like, oh my God, let's go to one?
No, I have been a spiritual seeker since I was 12 years old, and
Oh,
I
I
have
love it.
seen a lot of psychics, over the years. But there was something about this experience. The woman literally said to me, she's like, because I was so miserable, and I went literally crying, like, I've got to find my purpose, right? Like, who am I? What am I doing in this world? And she said to me, Donna, they're spelling it out for me. Spiritual psychology. And I was like, what the F is spiritual psychology? Literally, that was my response to that. But of course, I went home and consulted the real oracle, as I like to say, Googled spiritual psychology, and I found 3 universities that taught a program in this. And It's so funny when I look back on it now and I see all of the resistance that my ego had thrown up, not the least of which was the fact that I was working a 60-hour a week job at the Ritz-Carlton, like full court press. It was no
Mhm.
joke. It was a big job. I was overcommitted. I was not physically well at all. I was really, really declining emotionally and mentally. I was not in a good place. So the fact that I agreed to go into this program where I'm now going to be going to school to get a master's, it was like, what? Like, have you lost your mind? You're
Yeah.
completely, off the deep end. And yeah, it was the single biggest, uh, most transformative yes that I have said to myself in my life. Well,
Yeah.
second next to my husband, but yeah.
Yeah. Of course. Well, and I love that again, you're making it you're a real person. You had a what we call a real job, in corporate America. You were doing the thing that we're all taught to do, right? Like go to school, get the degree, get the piece of paper, and then go to work.
Yeah.
And then let someone else tell you when you get time off and vacation and how much you're going to be paid. And it's fine that you're miserable. This is what you're supposed to do. And you had the guts to leave that. So I love that you're sharing this part of your journey and your story because it makes you real. You get it, you get that type of hustle and grind. And now you can compare it to the beautiful life that you live now.
Yeah. Well, it was one step at a time, right? As you know, it's one step at a time. And in my book, Original Wisdom, I go into great detail about the epiphany I had and really what I would call divine intervention that gave me such clarity around actually leaving my job. Because the truth is, I had been unhappy probably for a decade. Like,
Mhm.
that's a long time,
It
right?
is.
To be sitting in that stuckness, to be sitting in that discomfort, and just when our heart and our head are out of alignment like that, a lot of other things break down, whether we're willing to admit that or not, whether
Yeah.
we're to recognize that or not. And I, in all levels of my consciousness, mentally, emotionally, physically, and spiritually, I was out of balance. And I was unhappy, through and through my entire being.
And I, again, freaking love that you're saying that because I want people that are listening to this that are sitting there going, yeah, me too. I'm unhappy. I know my head and my heart aren't aligned right now, that they know that there's a way out and to make change. And it's not just by getting on the treadmill more and eating salads. Well, a lot of people link their happiness to a weight number on the scale.
Yeah.
And I'm like, dude, no, there's so much in the middle. And that's why it's so important to have guests on like you to help people connect the pieces to opening up to your spiritual side, be awakened, how to get unstuck. Let's talk about your original wisdom. It's the name of your book.
Yes.
I love the name, Original Wisdom. That's cool. That's a really cool
Thanks.
name. Okay, how do we get in touch with this? What exactly is Original Wisdom?
Yeah. So, original wisdom is the inherent intelligence in all beings that is rooted in unconditional love. And, most of us, myself for sure, I have grown up believing that my intellectual intelligence is like the end all be all, right?
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
I've got to have the right answer and I've got to be the smartest person in the room and I've got to like know it all. And the truth is there's more to our beingness than just our intellectual intelligence, right? We have emotional intelligence, which this has been gaining a lot more exposure, like in the corporate arena, and people are writing books on emotional intelligence. So there's a whole body that we have, right? We have this emotional body,
Mhm.
and there is an intelligence to that. There's also an intelligence to our physical body, as you know very well, right? Our physical body is giving us information all the time, whether we choose to pay attention to that information or
Yeah,
ignore that
bingo.
information, right? Is two other uh, things. And then we have a spiritual intelligence. And our spiritual intelligence is really about being more of our true, authentic self, our true, authentic nature. So let me add just a little bit of context here for this. Our ego and our personality are our learned self. This is the part of us that was taught by our parents, our teachers, our governments, our religions, our cultures, our
Mhm.
society. This is the part of us that it's almost, you can think of it like a computer, right? Like it's a computer program. And all of the belief systems that we have, all of the thoughts that we have get logged in this computer. And we essentially run our life according to the programs that are running in that database. But there's this whole other aspect of our being, right? Which we can think of as our higher self or our soul, if you want to look at it that way, right? This is what I call our original wisdom. And every single person has this aspect to themselves. And this part of us is the energetic part of us. And energy, as Einstein taught us, cannot be created or destroyed. Energy just reinvents itself in different expressions. So this energy, the energy of our soul, has expressed itself as you, as me, as all the people that we see walking around on the planet. We are all individualized expressions of this energy. And I like to think about like our ego and our personality as our soul's avatar.
I like that. That's a good way to put it.
Yeah. So it's like we think that we're a body and that we have a soul. But I really want to invite people into the idea that our soul, our energetic system is really the larger part of who we are. And our soul is a more narrowly focused projection of the energy of all that is,
Mhm.
right? So you imagine all the energy in the universe, and our soul is like a more condensed version of all of that energy. And then our person, our bodies, this spark of life that is walking around as you and walking around as me and walking around as everyone is a more, even more condensed version of that energy.
Why do you think people lose or aren't in touch so much with this higher self, with their soul, who they truly are? Why is this so lost?
Oh boy, such a big question.
You're like, that was huge, Melissa.
It's such a big question, Melissa. You know, I think we are creatures of habit by nature. And this is not something that we're taught about in school, right? I had to wait until I turned 45 to go to school to learn about this. But because this is not something that is in the forefront of our minds, we fall into what I call like the hypnotic trance of our programmed mind. And we live out the programs that we have running in our intellectual intelligence, right? In this area where all these programs and all these belief
Mhm.
systems are. And oftentimes we let that part of ourselves drive the car. Like that part of ourselves is ruling our life. And unfortunately, that part of ourself is motivated by safety, security, comfort, and control. And so anytime any of those things are threatened in any way, the fear flag goes up, right?
Yeah.
And it stops us. And this is why people get stuck. This is why people, it appears like everything looks good on the surface, but then deep down, they feel this emptiness. They feel this discontent or a void that they can't quite put their finger on. And because we're so over identified with the physical world, we buy into the misunderstanding that what we're looking for is out there in the physical world,
Yeah.
right? So then we start setting up destinations to go after. And those destinations can be relationships, they can be a fit body, they can be, a car or a house or a job or money in the bank account. All of those things are outside of ourselves. My coach, Dr. Robert Holden, he has this amazing quote. He says, if something in your life is missing, it's probably you. And I love that because what I have discovered on my own journey is I really am searching for this higher part of myself.
Mm-hmm.
It is this higher self part of me that is filled with such wisdom and knowing and guidance for my life. And in order for me to connect to that and to receive that information, I got to slow down. I got to tune in. I got to go inward, not outward. We're getting deep, Melissa. We're getting deep.
We are, but like this completely makes sense to me, and hopefully a lot of the listeners that have been following me for a while, because I always bring everything back to like health and wellness and stuff. And you are breaking this down so perfectly, because when you talk about how people fall into that like hypnotic trance, and that's where like they get stuck and we're just like in the norm, and people think on the outside, that it's like, oh, well, it's just because I'm stressed and, I have a bad diet and I'm not doing this. And they have no idea that they're not connected to their true self. They don't realize that how much their spirituality is connected to this, and they don't slow down. They,
Yeah.
they don't take the time to get in tune. And part of my program, Busy to Bomb Fit Mom, oh my God, this is so perfect. I love that you're telling us this just in a different way. And you never know how people are going to hear things and be like, oh my God, Melissa's been saying that this whole time, but she had this Donna Bond on and she said it perfectly. And then it just like, boom, it just like clicked in my head. But I make people go on this path of like creating their vision of who they want to become. And then I make them dive into and learn about their nutrition and what works for them, what doesn't, not just here's a meal plan, and then we get into the mindset. What are
Yeah.
your affirmations? What do you think about yourself up here? And then we get to the workouts.
Yes.
So I love that you're saying that you have to go inward, you have to get in tune, you have to slow down. And that's what you realized you had to do too. But I'm like, oh my God, Donna, this totally makes sense to me. It's all the same.
I hear you. My professors, Doctors Ron and Mary Holnick at the University of Santa Monica, they always say growth is a process, not an event.
Yes.
And in our society, we always want that quick fix. And here's the truth, right? It is a process. And I love the way that you're guiding your clients to put the framework in place
Yeah.
before they hit the ground, right? Because that is creating a level of support for themselves. And it's that level of support that is going to be able to carry you through with any level of sustainability. Otherwise, you're out.
Yeah, it's true. And I've got to believe it's the same with you. Like if you people like on the surface just probably want to read your book and that's it. Or they want to just listen to a podcast and that's it. where there's layers to that onion that you got to peel back and keep going.
There are.
I deal with the same thing. People are like, just give me the workout. Just tell me how to squat and do lunges and I'll be fine. And I'm like, So let's talk about the 4 ways to get unstuck. Because now we're talking about the people that are like stuck. We're here. We're like, they're probably listening to this going, yeah, that's the life I live right now. I haven't really gone deep. I'm kind of shallow. How can this Donna bond help me go to the next level? Like, how do we get unstuck, transform our problems into possibilities?
I
Tell
love
us,
it.
Donna.
I
Tell
love it.
us.
Okay, so the first step is to recognize that you are stuck, right? And sometimes we don't even want to recognize this. And it goes back to what you were just saying, Melissa, about, we fall into this hypnotic trance and we get stuck there and we think it's something else. We think it's stress, or we think whatever, we're too busy. Life is always seeking to express itself through us. And life always wants us to be a bigger, grander, greater, more expansive expression of ourselves, right? Life, if you think about perpetual evolution of the universe, right? Things are always moving, growing, changing, evolving, expressing, expanding. They're always moving onward. We are no different. We are no different. And what happens is, oh yeah, we're comfortable in that comfort zone. We love being in there because we know what's going on.
Yeah.
No one's going to make a wrong move. We know it's familiar territory. We are in there and it feels safe.
Yep.
It feels secure. It feels comfortable. These are all the things our ego loves, right? That safety, security, comfort, control. I can be in control in my comfort zone because I know what's going on in here. So this was what was happening to me when I was in this 10-year period of being so unhappy deep down. But it was hard to recognize that because on the surface, everything looked great. I had this great job. I have an amazing husband. I live in a beautiful home in a perfect part of the country, right? Like it all looks perfect on the surface. But when you go under the surface a little bit, then you have a whole different story. And so the first step is like getting honest with yourself and really recognizing, hey, I am stuck and life is calling me to something more. And I feel it in my bones. I feel it in my heart. I feel it in my mind, my soul. But most of the time we don't want to look, right? Like we're doing like this. We don't want to really look because that would require us to get honest with ourselves. And if we get honest with ourselves, sometimes we tip over the apple cart, right? And I certainly tipped over the apple cart in my life because I walked away from a really big, fat, secure job. And so my husband was like, oh, what are you going to do?
Yeah.
Right.
Oh, I can only imagine what people must have thought.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. And like my coworkers, the people that I was working with, I mean, I walked away from some big bonus money. Like I walked away from prestige and success and notoriety and status. Oh yeah, people had some things to say about it, for sure. So what is the second step, right? So once I recognize that I'm there and I recognize that life is calling me to something else, the next thing I need is just a little bit of willingness. Just a little bit of willingness. Willingness to step out of my comfort zone. Willingness to maybe do something I've never done before. Willingness to be uncomfortable. Willingness to experience something that is unfamiliar. Because that's really like what our comfort zone is just, it's familiarity.
Yeah.
And when we go out of the comfort zone, it's unfamiliar. We don't like that, right? Because then we don't feel safe. But the truth is, most of the time, because we live in the free world, there's not really danger outside of the comfort zone. It's just unfamiliar.
Yeah. And I love that you're using the word willingness because it makes it seem just so much more gentle. Like, are you willing? Yeah, I'm willing. I'm willing. Okay, I'm willing.
Yes. I love that you called that out, Melissa. And I'm going to like go down a little bit of a rabbit hole here.
Go do it. I'll go with you.
Being gentle with ourselves. Wow. It took me my entire master's program to come to terms with that and to recognize that being gentle with myself is such a better way to get myself on board with new things. And I came from the school of hard knocks, right? Like you got to push and force and drive and go and kill yourself. Well, I saw my dad do that, right? He really did kill himself and through cancer when he was just 44 years old.
Oh, man.
So I had like the example in my life of somebody who lived that way and like it didn't really work out for him over the long haul. So I just love your awareness around this idea of being gentle because man, does that work?
It does. And if you're just willing to do something and try, it's so much better than saying, no, you have to do it. Just jump in and do it. You'll be fine. you know, I have to share like right now in my life, I do martial arts and stuff too. And I have to share this little story of my transition and just being willing. I do Taekwondo and I'm a second degree. I'm working on my third degree black belt. And I got introduced to switching over to jujitsu, which is a whole different martial arts, scares the crap out of me. I'm
Ooh,
not comfortable. It's all on the ground. I can stand and fight pretty good, not comfortable on the ground. And I've realized that if I want to grow and have multiple trainings under my belt, like I need to leave my comfort zone. Maybe now is the time. And I kind of used this in my self-talk when I was going to my first class, and I was just like, just be willing to go into that door. Just be willing to step onto that mat. Be willing to get your ass kicked for the next hour. It's okay. You'll recover. And I just remember telling myself, just, it's okay. Just try it, be open to it. And I love it. And I
amazing.
would have never discovered that I loved it if I hadn't, recognized where I was at and that I wasn't really moving where I wanted to go. And then I wasn't second, if I wasn't willing to just try it, just move forward. So that's my little experience with, I'm really comfortable and I don't want to leave, but it could be amazing on the other side.
Yes. And so I love what you're saying too, because that like kind of talks about the next step here. Next step is facing your fear and transforming that fear into courage. And that's what you did. And this isn't really something that we have to do because if we're willing to face our fear, it gets done for us. Because I think there's like this magic elixir that happens when we make a leap, right? When you take a leap of faith and you're like, there's no net and you just like launched yourself off of it, you're going into the fear. It's like when you're in the air, right there, magic happens. Like courage is born right there in that magic space. And when that courage is born, inner transformation takes place because then you suddenly begin to realize that you're stronger than you ever gave yourself credit for.
Mm-hmm.
You are more resilient than what you knew or thought. And all of these gifts that have laid dormant inside of you then begin to show up and they begin to come forward and they begin to just naturally rise up within you. And this, I believe, is like where you're letting more of your original wisdom through.
Mm-hmm.
Our original wisdom wants this expansion from each of us. And when we're all tucked away in our little comfort zones, on the conveyor belt of repetition,
Yeah.
that ain't happening. So courage is really the next piece of this. It's facing our fear and watching that be transformed into courage as we face it.
Yeah. It goes
And
hand in hand, right?
yes, hand in hand. But this becomes something that we have to like keep doing. We keep putting ourselves out there. We keep being willing.
Mm-hmm.
And with every step that we take out of our comfort zone, we are facing our fear and then transforming that into courage.
And that courage it's like the golden elixir. It's
It
like,
is.
because that's where you discover and find everything, like you said, like truly about yourself. And I wish every single person listening to this, would take that next step and find this courage, because it's so amazing. But people like to stay where they're at, and
They
I
do.
they do, but the more they listen, and that's why we have this podcast, that's why we have you on, to just keep pushing people. And like, maybe this is their breaking point. Maybe they're like, you know what? This is the fourth time this month that I've heard something about this topic.
Ooh, love this. Yeah.
Donna did it for me. That's it. I'm taking the plunge. Okay, I'm dying to know what number 4 is.
So number 4 is commitment, right? Because what happens is we move ourselves out of the comfort zone, we move ourselves through the fear zone, then
Mm-hmm.
we get into the growth zone, right? So you come through fear and you're in the growth zone. And in the growth zone, we fall down, we scrape our knees, we get back up, we learn.
Yeah.
There's learning, there's growing, there's all sorts of new things happen in that growth zone. But we have to be willing to like fall down and get back up again, fall down and get back up again. But there's the commitment, right? And the commitment, the more we stay with that commitment, the next thing we know, we've developed a little bit of mastery. And now we're experiencing success, right? It's like, hey, I'm in here, I'm doing this thing, like it's happening, right? But then here's what happens. The whole thing starts all over again, just like that. And in our linear thinking, right, in our left brain analytical minds, we always want everything to be linear. We
Mm-hmm.
want there to be a clear beginning and a clear end. That's not really how it works. I believe that all of our growth and expansion and evolution in life happens in the form of a spiral. And so it's like you're going around a spiral. And every time you make a lap around that spiral, you go up a little bit and you go out a little bit. You go up a little bit and you go out a little bit. And so with every lap of the spiral, you gain a different perspective, or you gain a higher level of awareness. You have a higher level of consciousness. And this higher level of awareness and consciousness, it naturally invites you to see the world from a different place. It naturally invites you to see the world from a different place. And this also has a natural effect of learning and growing built into it every time we make another lap around that spiral.
I love the spiral example, because when you first said, guess what? It starts all over again. I was like, oh, she's right. It just goes. But you completely changed that when you said it's like a spiral, and how you go around, you grow, you expand, and then you get to see the world in a different place with every loop. Like, that just totally made me feel better and take like pressure off. I'm not even doing anything, but I'm like, it just helped. But you're right. When you take that lap and you make another loop and you go up and you expand and you see that world differently, my mind obviously goes to health and fitness. And I think that, when people actually commit, and when they make a loop and they gain that different perspective, like, now you get to see the world as this strong, fit mom. When if you were like, morbidly obese before and super unhealthy, and it's like, you just did another lap and now you get to experience going to the beach or Disneyland super strong and active and fit. Like that's just where my mind goes. I always take it back to like health and wellness, but you're right every time. And then even a year from now, when the woman or man grows even more and expands with their life and spirituality and health and fitness, it's like now you get to experience the world at this from this perspective.
Yes. Well, and I just want to make a comment about right health and wellness. And my master's degree is in spiritual psychology with an emphasis in consciousness, health, and healing. And the way that we look at our being is that
Mhm.
we have four levels of our consciousness, right? We have our mental, our emotional, our physical, and our spiritual. And when we leave out any of those four components, we're missing something, right? So, I love that you have me on your show, right? Like I'm a spiritual coach and I'm going to talk to you about spirituality and energy and these things that might seem really intangible.
Mhm.
But it's like, this is part of you, whether you recognize it or you don't,
Yeah.
it's still part of you. And most of us ignore this part of ourselves. But when we can begin to get in touch with that part of ourself, cultivate a relationship with that part of ourself, bring that part of ourself more fully into our day-to-day life, then we're like operating with all cylinders.
All cylinders. That's right. All cylinders firing. And most people, they go through life with like two cylinders firing and like a third broken one. They don't even know about the fourth.
Yes, 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 yes. So I just like, I had to throw that in there, right? Because when I think about overall health and well-being, it's like a well-rounded thing. It includes all parts of our being.
Yeah. It truly does. And I refuse to be that trainer anymore of that's just like, no, work out every day and just eat your protein. Like it's so much more than that to find true happiness and stay on the right path. That commitment, number 4, like you said, to have that commitment, you got to have 1, 2, and 3.
Yeah.
You can't skip any or miss any.
Yeah.
So, Donna, tell us, how can we find you? How can we work with you? What's your website? Where can we get your book? All the things.
Yeah. Thank you. Well, if you want to take a deeper dive into what we've just talked about, 4 ways to get unstuck, you can access my free class for your listeners. You can
Oh,
go to
sweet.
donnabond.com/podcasts. And there is a link there that will let you get access into the course. And there's actually opportunities for transformation in there, which are also something that I offer in my book, right? It's like, because I am a coach
Mhm.
and a teacher and a guide, not only am I going to tell you about my story of how I left, corporate land and found my way into the work that I do today, but I'm also going to coach you through how you can do this for yourself. And I offer these opportunities for transformation in my free class, how to transform problems into possibilities.
Awesome. I love it. So it's donnabond.com is your main website too.
Yes.
Love it. Oh, Donna, I am so glad that we had you on the show today. You guys, make sure you check out her book, Original Wisdom, Harness the Power of the Authentic You. Oh my God, it's brilliant and you're brilliant. And we are so blessed to have you on here today. I hope we get to work together again soon.
Oh, me too, Melissa. And I love your energy. And this has been so much fun. Thank you so much for having me. I'm really
Oh, the pleasure was all ours because I think you really helped transform some of our listeners today. I really think they picked up on your message.
awesome. Thank you so
Uh,
much.
Stay safe, stay healthy, everyone. Thank you.